Starting from right here in front of me, Emmy Springelmeyer. He is the bureau chief for the Rocky Mountain News. He's been pretty much, the first time I met Emmy was April here, that he came and has been here since, covering the caucuses for his publication. Sitting next to him is David Price. Some of you are familiar with him. He is the political reporter for WHOTV. To his left is Rick Pearson. This is his fourth caucus he is covering for the Chicago Tribune. And on the end, we have the political science professor of Drake University and KCCI political analyst Dennis Goldford. One of the first questions I would like to ask, we've had a lot of polls come out this week, and we've seen the rise in the polls for Senator Obama, and on the Democratic side, we've seen Governor Huckabee on the Republican side. There's that viability question that keeps popping up from a lot of the caucus goers and people new to the process. And I'm going to direct this one first to Mr. Goldford. On the second choice on the Democratic side, if, say, like a Senator Dodd or Governor Richardson or Governor Biden, who could possibly benefit the most from the second choice?
As with so many of these issues or standings of the candidates, there are conflicting polls. I mean, I've seen so many I can't put my finger on at the moment, but one has suggested that Senator Edwards is the primary second choice. Another one suggested that Senator Obama is the primary second choice. I mean, what's interesting in effect is that both the people who support either Senator Edwards or Senator Obama have in effect rendered their judgments on Hillary Clinton. In other words, if you add up their polling numbers, again, the smaller the sample, the higher the possible error in all of this, so we always have to be careful. But basically 50% or so of likely Democratic caucus goers don't want Hillary. Now that doesn't mean they won't support her if she becomes the nominee, but clearly she's not the first choice of these folks. I think what's happened is that Senator Edwards probably figured strategically that, or his people did, that she would be the main candidate and he would be the un-Hillary, as I call him, with that particular idea. But Senator Obama sort of thundered into the mix and became an alternative to Hillary Clinton. So they're splitting that mix, so that second choice issue obviously becomes very important. Interestingly, I've not seen anybody or any set of findings suggesting that Hillary Clinton would be the second choice. Now, you can't say that nobody would take her as a second choice, but right now it seems to be either Obama or Edwards.
What he said.
I knew I liked this guy. I mean,
well, there's something that I'm going to be watching for that's more specific underneath that. If you take the average Iowa poll, the overall Iowa poll, and you say that's what the result is in any given precinct, in that precinct, then the people that would be declared unviable would be from Governor Richardson, Senator Biden, Senator Dodd, Representative Kucinich, and Senator Gravel. Now, each one of those candidates is drawing a certain type of person. Senator Biden and Senator Dodd in particular, and to some extent Governor Richardson, are all drawing a certain number of people for whom experience is the number one factor. So if those people still consider experience the number one factor as they move over to that second choice, my question is, do some of them go to Clinton? Do some of them go to Biden or to Obama or Edwards in those? I don't know the answer to that, but that's one thing I'm watching. I really want to know specifically, do Richardson's people, because of the anti-war stance, go to one of the candidates like Obama or Edwards, or because of the experience issue, do they go to Senator Clinton, who's made the argument that her unique experience makes her more experienced than the others? I'm not sure, and I'd love to have that answered, actually.
I think there's also a disaffected Democrat that's out there that are looking at these other candidates, and I think, when you look at what Edwards has done in this campaign versus 4 years ago, where he has really, I think, become much more of the populist. Also, in fact, as you can tell in recent weeks, as the Clinton-Obama fight has gone on, that Edwards has retrenched significantly from his significant attacks on Clinton, that I think among those disaffected Democrats that may find themselves in that kind of non-viable candidate position, that Edwards becomes their choice.
You know, I'm also going to watch for what Emmy is talking about, because I think it is going to be curious, all those folks at the bottom, those that, at least according to the polls, will be at the bottom as far as now. But just to mix it up, the fun part will be that there will be those precincts, though, where you just don't have enough people to have Clinton, Obama, and Edwards all viable. So then if, as Dennis was saying, you start looking at if Obama and Edwards are starting, maybe if they have some of the same people who are the anti-Hillary people, what was your word, un-Hillary?
Un-Hillary.
Your un-Hillary people. There will be those precincts where it could be Obama or Edwards who won't be viable.
Maybe they'll just gang up on.
Yeah, who knows?
There's also a question, I think, about what we mean by experience, to go to M.E.'s question, because of his comment. Because if experience means some familiarity with the levers of government, that's, of course, a claim that Senator Clinton makes all the time, and Senator Obama has said, you know, I don't recall that she was Secretary of the Treasury or anything like that. So that raises that issue. But experience, aside from referring to familiarity with the levers of government, could also refer to the politics of the 1990s. And I recall hearing a strongly Democratic, very feminist woman say, I love Hillary and I love Bill, but I don't want the circus back in town for another 4 or 8 years. So experience there could say, you know, if you go with Hillary, does that mean we're back into the terrible obsessive hatreds of especially white Southern males for the Clintons? Are we back to those battles of the 90s? So experience in that sense could be off-putting.
One of the things where we've all heard, you hear the Senator Dodds, the Senator Bidens talk about the John Kerry moment where he came back from 19 points in 2004. Will we see a John Kerry type moment this year? Anyone? Out of anybody? Biden, Dodd, Richardson?
By definition, nobody predicted the John Kerry moment.
This is true. So here's your chance. We can predict it.
Consistency in politics, right here. I just find it, I can't rule it out, but I'm not trying to be a shill for Edwards here, but I'm just kind of very curious where he ends up in all of this, because, you know, he's basically kept a pretty good ground team here in the state from 4 years ago, and knows how it works. I mean, I think other than really some of his biggest losses from 04 to now was David Axelrod, who's now doing the Obama campaign. But I mean, I'll just be very interested, because I think he had a pretty significant built-in infrastructure that we'll see how this pays off. But at the same time, when you have kind of this overwhelming machinery that's moved in of the Clinton machine and the Obama machine, who are just stacked up terrifically as far as staff, that I'd be hard pressed to see where somebody could almost come out of nowhere.
One thing that's interesting is because my editors are all in Denver and in Washington, D.C., they're not here in Iowa. So whenever I talk to my editors back home, they're like, how's the race between Clinton and Obama going? And being here in Iowa, it feels like a 3-person race, and it always kind of has. The polls show they're all above 20%, and so I always have to remind them, well, there are 3 candidates over 20%. One of them is sunk a little bit, and that is Edwards. He has lost some in Iowa, but he stayed right around 20%.
And they're all in the margin of error, basically.
And they're all within the margin of error, and there are 3 candidates over 20%, and how those coalitions work out, and there could be, you know, there could be a shift to any of those 3, depending on which of the lower candidates is not viable, and not what that candidate wants, but what his people are attracted to. Like I say, if it's the Richardson people going to Richardson because of the harsh anti-war stance he's taken, they might go in one direction with the second choice, and the others, I'm still unclear on where they go.
Let me follow that up by asking my journalistic colleagues here a question. When I was doing my graduate work at the University of Chicago, it was still the reign of Mayor Daley I. And I recall that the Daley organization, or as less favorable people used to call it, the machine, used to pray for snow or bad weather on election day, whether primary or a general election, because their organization was so good, they were going to turn their people out. But the reform candidates or the others who were more marginally involved just likely weren't going to show up. Their supporters weren't likely to show up. So yes, Edwards certainly had a very good organization in the state, but who do you guys think, at this point, how would you rate the organizations of the 3 candidates, the 3 main candidates?
I mean, given the levels of staffing that Clinton and Obama have put in with the terrific resources they have to be able to do it. I mean, to me, I'd even almost give the edge really to Obama's people over Clinton at this point when it comes to the ground level organization.
Those two more than Edwards.
More than Edwards, yeah.
Well, he has that legacy organization that no one else has, and so that can't be discounted. And he's also got, but when you started talking about the weather, I was thinking